certainly like to recognize him at this time.
I do, Mr. Chairman. Thank you so much for the recognition, and let me thank you as well publicly for your leadership in identifying this important gap, if you will, in our own oversight challenges and responsibilities. So this is an important hearing, and really appreciate your willingness to call it. Ms. Murren, welcome to the Agricultural Appropriations Subcommittee. Your agency has a daunting task. We all realize that in overseeing the spending and performance of agencies so large that they can be bigger than some countries around the globe. So, and it's $1 trillion worth of spending that you have responsibility over. And as the chairman identified, part of that responsibility is over the Food and Drug Administration. So let's start with one of our most basic needs, drug safety. The people back home expect safe and effective drugs, vaccines, and medical devices. And as you note in your written statement, roughly 40% of finished drugs, and 80% of active drug ingredients are made in more than 150 countries. Mr. Chairman, I'm going to just read the sentence one more time. Roughly 40% of finished drugs and 80% of active drug ingredients are made in more than 150 countries. You think we can trace all that? Most Americans would be shocked to know that most drugs or drug ingredients are not produced here, and as your audits have noted, FDA conducts limited overseas inspections. So a GAO report, Government Accountability Office report from a few months ago, highlighted the deficiencies in this foreign drug inspection process and said, for instance, quote, the officials estimated that the agency generally gives 12 weeks of notice to establishments that investigators are coming when investigators are traveling from the United States. So, Chinese companies have 12 weeks notice to clean up their act. And we give domestic manufacturers no time at all? This makes sense? We need to know why the drug industry has moved drug production out of the United States. That's a fundamental question. And second, why we can't make pharmaceuticals in our own country. This is all the more urgent given the outbreak of the coronavirus. This has accentuated the urgent need for this nation to produce critical drugs and medical supplies right here. I also want to talk about another basic FDA function, that's food safety. While the committee in general can have opposing views on certain things, one thing we agree on is the government's role in ensuring that our food is safe. So we rely upon your agency and the GAO to evaluate and critique and make recommendations on how to fix what the FDA might not be doing correctly to reduce or eliminate food-related illness. So I see that your agency has only conducted 2 food-related audits since 2015. You can come back to that when we question. That's the information I see. And I'm hoping your agency will do more in the future to answer fundamental questions about our food supply. So your office spends roughly 4% of its budget on FDA-related work through the $1.5 million appropriated by this subcommittee. Yet the FDA is responsible for oversight of 20% of all consumer spending in the United States. You see the gap? So here's something we can celebrate. I am in full agreement with you that you need more resources for this important work. So with that, Mr. Chairman, I'll stop and yield back my time. And again, I appreciate your willingness to engage in this form of oversight.
Thank you, Mr. Fortenberry. Before Ms. Murren begins, a reminder to members that, as is customary with the subcommittee,
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Let me just continue with the same line of questioning. Okay. Why are there surprise inspections of drug manufacturing here, whereas in some foreign countries, they're given 12 weeks notice? Is that fair?
As an oversight entity, we're looking at how the agency can function better. I really can't comment on that policy based on our work.
Why not? Where did the policy come from?
It would have come from FDA. I am not familiar with how it was developed.
I'd like you to look into that, please. I'd like you to develop an understanding as to why this unfair duality exists regarding domestic drug manufacturers versus drugs that are manufactured in certain foreign countries. I want to know why that exists, how it was developed, what rationale there is for that, what justification potentially, and if it needs to change, come back to us and tell us it needs to change.
We will do that.
I mean, apparently, it's grossly unfair.
Yes.
An unlevel playing field tilted toward multinational corporations who have moved their manufacturing overseas, probably to take advantage of lax labor standards and environmental standards for profiteering purposes. Now, I want to know if that's embedded somewhere because of the fault of Congress or the fault of the implementing agencies.
We will look into that and respond to you with that information.
This is very important, particularly given the raging coronavirus around the world and all of us suddenly discovering how much of our supply lines are related
Yes.
to the area that is the source of the infection.
Yes, and this is one of the reasons why we're very glad to be out in the field on our foreign drug inspection report.
So are our drugs safe?
As an OIG, we're always going to be able to find ways that things can be better. And we have identified certain weaknesses, and we'd love to see them, and we are working with FDA to see those fixed.
Extrapolating from that, what % of our drugs are not safe? See, we can't
Yeah,
just
I don't-
keep talking in the abstract that we're looking for ways to fix this and we've identified a problem. It's not fully your problem, I understand.
Right.
But what recourse do I have? This, frankly, is one of the most important hearings going on in the United States Congress right now. It really is. And it falls to this agency, yours, and other people of goodwill throughout the executive branch to come together right now and get in front of this question so that there's a permanent restructuring so that we're not left vulnerable again like we are right now. I need your help in this regard.
We will be very happy to work with you on that.
But give me some more specifics. I'm sorry, it's an awkward question, but I've got to keep forcing you out of the abstract to the specific. Tell us how large this problem is. Quantify it in some way, not just we've identified these gaps. And I get it, you need to speak in that language, you need to be careful, but you have to
Right.
understand, I have to push as well.
No, and I do appreciate that. Sir, I'd be worried that I would say a number that,
I understand, that's a fair answer, but you know the challenge.
I do know the challenge, and we share the concerns and really appreciate the concerns that you were raising, and we'll be working as hard as we can to address these issues and provide you with information.
Okay, and this is the moment.
Yes.
Given the world's consciousness and our government's attentiveness to this gap right now is starting to be reported. It creates a moment of opportunity rather than a moment of blame. So let's seize the opportunity to actually dig deeper and find out why there's an unlevel playing field potentially between the incentives to drug manufacturers to stay in this country versus go overseas and the vulnerabilities that that creates for us. I need the specific answers to that. I need you to help me.
We will be happy to work on that and get back to you,
Mr.
sir.
Chairman, is this fair?
It is fair.
Secondly, it's the same question. Is our food safe?
And I would give you the same
I
answer.
know you have to, but this is the broad architectural question.
Right.
And then if we move, yes, but here are a few gaps, great. Or no, we've got to get to work, fine. Clearly, we're somewhere in between.
I would put us more in the yes, but
Okay,
certainly than in the no.
all right. That's fair. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, Mr. Fortenberry.
Okay, Ms. Murren, you said that this hearing is very important to you
Yes.
in terms of setting priorities. I'm going to go back to the first question, and I asked you two questions. One is, given the huge amount of dependence we have on overseas supplies of drugs and drug ingredients, the mechanism by which we ensure that those drugs are safe is deficient. That's what I hear you saying.
I said that we are currently studying.
Okay, that's the first question. How is that to be improved? The second question is, why the imbalance? What are the incentives in our system that have compelled these corporations to move those product productions overseas? And you said, we're going to get back to you on that, so how is that going to happen? I met your fine staff here, and there's a lot of notes being taken, so give me how you're going to do that and what timeline.
We will respond to you within 2 weeks with our plan of action.
Okay, great. And I don't want to put the chairman on the spot, but I think we're in alignment in this regard. Is that fair, Mr. Chairman?
It is.
That we can say that this is a priority of the committee?
Yes.
Thank you. So that's important to me. I want to turn, though, to, it's important to all, not me, it's important. We've got a moment here, if I can't emphasize it enough. There is clarity around just how big a problem this is because of the coronavirus outbreak. We've known it's a problem for a long time, yet we're passive in light of it until there's some emergency. We're in the emergency room. 911. Help us answer this question now.
Yes, sir, we very much like to take advantage of opportunities to solve problems.
Thank you. Let me ask you another question, diverting topics for a moment. I want to talk about the disease called ALS, sometimes known as Lou Gehrig's disease. It's that plus many other degenerative diseases, there is no cure. However, in the case of ALS, there is a treatment showing some promise on the horizon. Last year, I introduced a bill called ALS Placebo No More. We all agreed, or many of us agreed, on a bill called Right to Try a little while back. We thought we'd solved the problem for the sickest Americans who are willing to go into experimental treatment, assuming that full liability themselves. But it doesn't solve a problem for everyone. So since your agency does extensive audit work over the National Institutes of Health and the Food and Drug Administration, would you be willing to work on an assessment how these two agencies can improve their work on clinical trials?
If funding is available within the priorities that are set, we would be delighted to do that.
Okay, so you have resource constraints. So you're obvious, this isn't a question you've looked at before, I assume.
That is correct.
Okay. Well, here's the deeper related question. If you could provide a review across FDA centers to determine whether drug treatments within clinical trials are continued for patients showing benefits, that would be most helpful. That would also be consistent with the spirit of the Right to Try law that we passed earlier, which has some inhibiting factors built into it, sadly. It gave a lot of us a head fake, unfortunately, and gave false hope to many people. A degenerative disease like ALS, where there's a treatment on the horizon and a clinical trial basically excluded certain people for non-good scientific reason. There's a problem here. We've raised this with the FDA. There's some admission that, yeah, we need to change the procedures here. If there could be work across NIH and FDA to ensure that these two agencies can work together to improve the clinical trial process, it would bring hope in a manner that's consistent. We can't promise anything, but it would bring hope to our structural approach to how we move drugs onto the market quicker or give people exceptional opportunities when they basically have no other option. A little bit beyond your purview, I get this, and you did a fine job of segueing to help me by giving me more funds. I heard what you said, okay? But again, this is important.
No.
Because there is suffering, there are certain structural opportunities for change, if you will, let's put it that way, that we think could alleviate the suffering and bring treatment options to people quicker.
Thank you, Mr. Fortenberry. Every year, the OIG shares with this subcommittee its strategic plan for FDA, and we actually also produce a strategic plan for NIH. Would be happy to share those, particularly, obviously, the FDA one.
I'm skimming the surface here. We can actually provide you some of the insights we've gained, some research in this regard to help you prioritize.
That's exactly what I was hoping to say, that we could use the process of producing that document to make sure we're...
This is really important for a lot of people suffering, so thank you very much.
Thank you.